Hello everyone and welcome to Total Quilter Monthly for December 2022. My name is Mark Garetz and I'm a National Floriani educator. And this month, since it's December and New Year's coming up, I thought we'd do a New Year's block. So that's what we're going to cover this month. So if you haven't done it already, go ahead and open up Total Quilter. And I have my grid turned off. You can leave your grid on if you want. It doesn't really matter. But in this video, if I want you to do a normal left click of the mouse, I'm just going to say click. And if I want you to right click specifically, I will say right click. And then sometimes I'm going to have you hold down some key on the keyboard and click and drag. And we're going to do that actually right now. So I'm going to come up here to my built-in shapes and I'm going to click it and I'm going to select my square or rectangle shape. Then I'm going to come down into my work area, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the control key on my keyboard, click and drag the mouse. Now the size right here doesn't matter. And I'm going to let off my mouse and then let off the control key. And that's an important sequence. You always want to let off, click the mouse, hold down control, click, drag the mouse, let off the mouse, and then let control up. And what that does is that gives us a perfect square. And this is going to be our block, and we need to decide what size block we're going to do. So let's do an 8-inch block, I think. So I'm going to come back up here to my normal select tool, and I'm going to select the shape we just did, and I can see here it's 4.15 inches. So we need to resize that to an 8-inch block, just to show us our boundaries of where we're going to put things. So I'm going to come over here to my Properties box, click the Transform tab. I'm going to make sure Maintain Aspect Ratio is checked because we want to keep that square ratio. And I'm just going to, in the width, I'm going to put in an 8. And you see that the height automatically changes to 8. And I'm going to go ahead and click Apply. And now I have an 8-inch block. And I'm going to center that up. So with it selected, I'm going to come up here to my alignment. I'm going to click the down arrow. Now there's only one icon that's lit up, and that is center to ruler. So I'm just going to go ahead and click that, and that's going to center up my shape for me to the rulers, which are up here and over here. So right now the center is at 0, 0. Now that's not super important, doesn't really matter, but I just like to keep it in the center. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add a background to this. And what I'd like to add is the words Happy New Year, and I want it to repeat all across the block. And so how can we do that? So I want that stitch to be a run stitch. I want it to be light, kind of like a stippling or a texture fill, but I want it to be text. Now there's no text type texture fills built into Total Quilter. If you have FTCU, then you do have some, but we're going to just assume that you don't. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click my text tool up here, the T, and when I click that I get two options, text on a circle or regular text. So I'm going to click regular text. Then I'm going to come down here into my text field, or into my block, and I'm just going to click to add new text in. And I was playing around. This is the last font that I used, and we're going to come back to this font. We're going to use this a bit later, but I'm going to change my font, and what I want is a run stitch font. So I could click my down arrow and look through all my fonts in here, but an easier way to do it is to come to this box above it, click the down arrow, and what I want is a run stitch font. So I'm going to click run, and now when I click this, it just shows me the 4 run stitch fonts that are available in this software. So I could use Flatliner, I could use Line Block, I could use Line Script, or I could use Plain Print. So what we're going to use today is Line Block, and I'm going to come up here to this text box. I'm going to highlight my text so I can type over it. Then I'm going to put in Happy New Year. And I'm going to click apply, and I can see that that is way too big. What I want, I could just use this and go, all the way down because it's about the width of my block, but I want it to repeat twice. So what I want to do is set this to a little bit less than 4 inches because we have an 8-inch wide block, and if I do 2 across, then it will be 2 times 4 is 8. Now I want to have a little bit of spacing on either side and a little bit of spacing in the center. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this to 3.75 inches wide. Now the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to come back over here to my regular select tool and click it to get out of text mode. And now I can come over here to my transform box and I can put in my width 3.75, and once again I'm going to leave my maintain aspect ratio checked. So I'm going to put in 3.75 inches and I'm going to click apply, and now that's a nice small size. And I'm just going to kind of move it up into the corner here. Now how am I going to repeat it all the way around? To do that, I'm going to use my repeat design tool, which is right here, and I'm going to click that tool. And you can see it's already given me a little bit of design here. Now 2 across is what I want, but I don't have any spacing between these objects. And before I adjust that, I want you to notice that down here, this is while we're adjusting, giving us a constant readout on our output size. So right now we're at 7.5 inches wide, which is still going to fit within our block, and we're at 0.7 inches tall. So what I'm going to do is increase my spacing between them, and this is the horizontal space control right here. So I'm just going to click the up arrow here and just keep adding some space until I get it to where it looks pretty good. And I'm still looking at my output down here, and 7.75 is pretty good. So that gives me about 1/8 of an inch on each side, which is good. I think that's what I want. Then I want a little bit of vertical distance. I don't want them squished right up to each other. So I'm going to add some vertical distance, and I'm just going to do this visually. I'm not even looking over here. I'm looking over here. And that looks pretty good, but I don't have enough vertical repeats. So my number across is okay, but my number down isn't there yet. So I can kind of in my head try and figure out how many of these I want. But I'm just going to take a guess. I'm going to say I want 15 of them. So I'm going to type in 15 and I'm going to click apply. And now I can see, okay, I've got 15. My output size is 6.93. So I've still got some space at the top and the bottom. So I'm going to up that by 1. I'm just going to use the up arrow to do that, to 16. When I use that arrow, I don't need to click apply. It automatically applies it. Now we're getting close. Let me see if I can fit one more in. Let me go to 17. And I can. Okay, so we're pretty good. We're not exactly square, but that's okay. We could adjust it in the block later, but I think this is fine. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and that's going to bring that into my block as a big object. Okay. Now, these are actually still individual text objects. You can see over here in the sequence view, they're individual. I want to move them around together because I want to center them. And in order to do that and not have them all center on top of each other, I need to group these. So they're all selected right now. So I can group them in a number of different ways. I'm going to do it with the group icon up here. So here's my group icon. If I click it, now this is one group. And if I get my little hand there and I move it around, you can see that I'm moving it as one group. Okay, so I can center it up by eye, and that looks pretty good. Or I could center it automatically, and I'm going to do that later because I want to center everything on the block. And so just centering this right now, I could do it, but I'm just going to save it for later because I'm going to center everything. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add some text, bigger text over the top of this that gives us the year 2023. All right, so I'm going to come back up here to my text tool, and I'm going to, before I do that, I'm going to make sure I click off of this so I don't replace that with text. And what I want to do is click my T again, and now I'm going to click somewhere on the design, and it's going to keep that last font that I used, but I want to change it. I also want to change the text, so I'm going to change to 2023, and the font that was up there before is called Starstruck, and I just picked it because I thought it looked kind of cool for this particular design. So I'm going to pick Starstruck, and I'm going to click Apply, and that's going to give me my Starstruck here. And whoops, I didn't want to do that. I got to undo. I clicked the wrong icon. What I want to do is get kind of back into normal mode here. But let me not do that. Let me just stay in text mode. Just make sure when you want to move it that you have a hand. I was over this little diamond here, which adjusts the inner character spacing. So I have a hand, so I can move this back into my block here. And I'm going to resize it proportionally by using this little icon up here in the left-hand corner, which is my size control. This proportionately resizes it. And when I do that, I get it pretty big. And once again, I have the hand, and it's a little bit too big. Let me bring it back down a little bit by repeating that, but dragging in the other direction. That looks pretty good. Okay, and I'm going to move that into the center just approximately for now. Let me turn on 3D and see what our block looks like in 3D. So to do that, I'm going to come over here to my left-hand toolbar, click the 3D icon, and oops, I've got a problem. This font is not going to stitch out like this. Now, why is that happening? Because when I increase the size of this font so big, the satin stitches that make up this get too long in certain areas, and so the machine is going to interpret those as jump stitches because these stitches are too long. And so I could either make this smaller, which I don't want to do, or what I can do is I can change the actual type of stitch that I'm using in here from a satin stitch to a fill stitch. And the way I do that is come over here to my fill in my text box, in my properties box, and right now it's on satin, and I'm going to click the down arrow, and I'm going to pick a different pattern. So I could pick any of these patterns. I'm going to go ahead and click smooth, and I could change my density here if I want. So actually, let's make it a little bit less dense so we don't get so much puckering. And I'm going to click apply, and when I do that, now my text is all filled in, and that's great. So I'm going to come out of text mode. I'm going to come back to my normal select tool, and I'm actually going to select everything in this block, and I can do that by dragging all the way around it. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to click out here, drag all the way around my block, and that's going to select everything in my block. And now what I want to do is center everything up. So I'm going to center the backdrop into my outline, my block outline, and I'm going to center my text into the outline. And I'm going to do that by coming up here to my alignment, and I'm going to click the down arrow. And now what I want is this one right here. Not that one, center to rulers. What I want is center selected objects. This is going to center everything to the center of themselves. So when I do that, you can see it shifts just a little bit. And I've got one more thing I want to do. I don't want this in this blue color. I want to go ahead and I'm going to leave the Happy New Year in blue, but I want this to be in red. So when I click that, you see what happened is I clicked my background. So I can keep trying to click until I get my text. There I go. Or I could have come over here to my properties box and click the text down here, which a lot of times is a nice shortcut way to do it. You don't have to mess around trying to click right on it. Now what I want to do is make this red. I don't see any reds in here. What I'm going to do is come to my thread color search icon down here, click it, and I'm using the Floriani Poly thread chart, by the way, and I'm just going to type in the word red and click find. Okay, now I've got all my reds right here, and I'm going to not use Old Mars red. What I want is Fire Engine red, 702, and then another one I really like is Ruby red. But let's go ahead and use Fire Engine red. So I'm going to click that, and you can see here I've already just applied it by clicking it. When I click off of it, when it's not selected, you can see that I've got 2023 here. So this is my block, and right now if I were to stitch it, this outline right here would not stitch. And if I don't want that outline, then I wouldn't stitch it. If I did want it, what I would do is select it, and I would change it to a run stitch down here in my one-click icons. Click it and change it to a run, and now that would stitch out. You can see it's going to stitch out in red. Of course, I could change that color. I really don't want that to stitch out, so I'm just going to click undo, and then all I need to do is save this block, and it would be done. So that completes our lesson for December 2022. I want to thank you for watching, and I invite you to come back next month and next year, and hope you have a happy new year.